expressed it all. Glad you're back safe. For David's sake, I mean. We're having a moment here! Fuck yeah! Fuck yeah! Fuck yeah!
Chainsaw Man's anime has experienced a lot of internet criticism since it came out, but the most insufferable discussion is about the direction of the show. This discussion is so toxic that everybody is fed up with it, while it paradoxically never has actual discussion because everybody is so adverse to the atmosphere around it. Most words spoken on it are, I like it, I don't, I dislike those who don't have my opinion. And that's why I'm making this, because the movie is coming out when I finish this, and it has a drastically altered art style, so the discussion is in the cycle again. I don't want to tell anybody what to think. I've just spent so long thinking about it that I'm trying to present the case for why I and others dislike the new style. The anime has a multitude of things people argue over, the direction, the art, the voice acting, so on, but this is mostly going to be on the art style, as I think that's the one most people don't really understand. Getting my bias out of the way, I love Chainsaw Man, and Rize is my favorite character, so naturally I'm going to have a lot of bias and higher standards.
Please, get the friend maker!
However, I do want to say that if you like the anime's art style, that's chill. This is mostly me trying to explain why people like me dislike it. I have a film degree and I'm unemployed. What else am I going to do with it? What this means is that most aspects of the anime were made to be in the style of movies. We see this manifest as these high-fidelity, non-anime-like renders of the characters, with the backgrounds being hyper-realistic in style and presentation. A lot of people like it because it technically looks quite good, but other people dislike it because it technically looks quite good. So the first obstacle of this discussion is that people want to conflate looking good with actually being good. The novelty of such a style is used as justification for its inclusion, because the fact that any person, hardcore fan or not, can immediately look at the anime and tell that this is a different direction to most things that are out there means people advocate for it as a way to capture Chainsaw Man's novelty on the screen. Furthermore, there is this common idea that because Fujimoto is a big film person and wants to make film, that this approach is best. However, none of this actually argues for the art style we have, it only argues for the idea of having a novel visual direction. Equating fidelity with quality is problematic as it disregards principles of character and world design that make art compelling, instead choosing to fill a very short-sighted visual niche. Novelty is not a compelling justification if that's the only justification we have. The purpose of an art style in a narrative work is to say something about the characters, the themes, the plots, and so on. Most discussion on the art style never actually discusses what the new direction says about the work, adds to the work, or does to change the work. Often people say Fujimoto likes film and wants Chainsaw Man to be unique like film. That actually advocates against this direction. Because Fujimoto likes film so much, he knows that you cannot just do film and anime. What works for one medium doesn't work for another. And this is where the anime fails because it is shot for shot the vast majority of the time, just with a high fidelity, quote-unquote, live action look at the manga panels. This is to the detriment of Chainsaw Man because meaning found in the original art is gone with nothing there to adequately replace it. In most modern animes, there is a radical change in the direction because they're able to use anime elements to be something different, to heighten the work, to say something new or nuanced. So like, why does the art style not work? Well, simply it fails to capture the nuance that is intrinsic to the original rougher style. It perceives fidelity as the pinnacle of quality, which misses the point that any art style can be of quality. It's about the implementation of the art rather than just the art itself. The original art style works because it is rough, it is dirty, and you can tell that a human physically drew it. Fujimoto says something about the world and the characters, which communicates the themes and ideas of Chainsaw Man. The new style doesn't meet that level of expression because we have sacrificed the mechanisms that would have allowed us to actually say anything. Look at the character designs. Denji never looks as sad as if you picked a random page in the manga. Despite his render being so real, so to speak, it says less about him because he no longer has this dirty gruffness, the bags under his eyes, or the disheveled look that established his character in the original. The reason Denji is such a good character is because you can look at him and you can immediately tell me something about him. He has been beaten down by society, he's been perpetually exploited, but is still a kid. I don't know what you could tell me about the anime Denji. He always looks fine, even when he's supposed to be a starving child. So the humanizing Fujimoto does with this character of having this very loud, this crude teenager be quietly juxtaposed with the weakness, the wear, the childishness, the sorrow, and the solemnness, it's not present in the anime version. This extends to other characters as well. The anime fails to understand that Makima's face being obfuscated in the manga is actually a tool to make her seem more removed, not human, playing from the background. In the anime, we are always showing her, which never achieves the same effect. Aki's eyes no longer look like he's on the verge of tears all the time, which is intrinsically part of his character as someone who has spent their whole life trying to deal with loss and keeping people away. Power is mostly fine, but for a fiend, she looks remarkably well kept. Sawatori looks far less like a snake, despite that being her entire character, and Kishibe doesn't look as old and weathered as he should. But credit where credit is due, Himino looks amazing. Someone on the team was a big Himino fan, and I'll bring her up later because she absolutely is nailed in her character design. For the backgrounds, we never use the anime techniques of colors, motion, vectors, distortion, blacks, whites. Instead, every background is presented exactly how it would look in the real world. This is, by and large, a terrible idea because we have fundamentally removed a compelling tool in the anime arsenal to replace it with nothing. The fight between Samurai Sword and Aki is rather uninteresting because it's a CGI fight on a gray concrete background. In the manga, we use negative space, color, high detail juxtaposition with low detail, and the panel position to sell the fight. Here, we ignore all of that. This is even worse with Aki killing the Ghost Devil. The manga has him disconnected from the real world and juxtaposes the flowers on the back of the Ghost Devil with a field of flowers, equating the two. This is used to sell the lack of fear Aki has and the inner peace he's been able to find after Himino's death. This is gone in the anime to do what? Show us concrete? Makima at the Yakuza is especially bad because here, instead of using a void to convey power when she stares, we just get a room. We're no longer using shadows to obfuscate things. Now shadows are present more as a vestigial feature of the original manga and less to accomplish anything because nothing is being done with the shadows. I do want to say that sometimes the structuralism does work. I think the train execution is great. It's very haunting and it's super realistic in the way it's depicted, which makes it feel like this could happen. The way Sawatori recalls Snake
Return.
works really well because the hyperrealism makes the disappearance pop from the screen. For the most part though, the backgrounds undersell anything that is happening because they're not being used to say anything or work in tandem with every other visual element to create meaning. Okay, this part is a little harder to describe, but I hope that if you've read the manga, you know what I'm talking about. The panel size, the flow, and the relations are unique in Chainsaw Man, and they pose a challenge to how you adapt it. Part of Fujimoto's art style is using structuralism like you see in film to sell ideas in ways other mangakas don't. He finds power in juxtaposition, repetition, and so on that sell emotion and character. There's this part where Denji tells Aki that he doesn't know what a fiend is, and there's this rather large single panel of Aki reacting before he moves on. It is 3 panels, but it conveys a lot about Aki and his character. He's realizing that this is another person in the grinder, whose ignorance and arrogance is being exploited, who will probably die like so many others, and they never stood a chance. This isn't present in the anime.
So, what's this fiend thing?
Please, they cover fiends in school.
Well, I didn't go to school.
Devils who take control of corpses are fiends.
Because we just animate through it and expect the fact that there's movement to pick up the slack. So none of the emotional nuance is carried across. This issue is primarily because we shoot the anime like a movie. So a moment that any other anime may hold on or use some creative technique to convey emotions is just not on the agenda. Finally, the color. There is an astounding lack of color in this anime, which, unless you're making something in black and white, there is no real point in making something look this bland. Yes, sometimes the anime does use color, and it works really well. I like the tone of the filing room. The underground devil containment having this red and blue juxtaposition is really good. However, because we are trying to be realistic, we color everything as if it were reality, which again means we have a lot less to work with to sell themes, characters, and emotions. Every other anime uses color to show intense action, chaos, love, fear, tension, so on and so forth, but here you can count the number of scenes with striking color on one hand. So you have another uphill battle to just convey basic ideas, emotions, and characters. Because heaven forbid we employ color theory. It doesn't even make sense if this is trying to be like film, because so many films use color. The best movies out there use color in incredibly striking ways. Even ones that are based on real world events find ways to use color because color matters. And even movies that are in black and white are still shaded in certain ways to convey emotion and ideas. So I don't know why we're not using color at all. What is this, Modern Warfare 4? Oh, guess what? Modern Warfare 4 still uses colors because Chernobyl doesn't look like that. So the rebuttal to this argument is often that that's the point. that it's meant to create a more realistic depiction of events, it's meant to feel more real, and that's probably true, but I don't think it actually works, and I kind of reject the idea that even if it accomplishes the idea of looking like live action, it's actually worthy of praise. If the stripping back of all the anime elements to be live action is to change how we represent the themes and emotions of Chainsaw Man to ground them in our reality or something, then we genuinely fail. What does this anime say that the manga doesn't say in a better, shorter runtime, or other manga and anime say with more color, more action, more anime-ness? What new reading, deeper meaning, or inventions does the anime actually have? Because most of the fights are rather boring, most of the emotions are less defined, and the themes do not come across as hard. Chainsaw Man is an inherently absurdist manga, and trying to make it like film is so foolish because it enters into direct confrontation with what makes the story structure of the manga work: the high absurdity and the lower, slower, more meditative sections. So I think a lot of people know this but don't appreciate it, but when adapting something, you have to bring something new to the table. So when you think about what the best adaptations are, you think about ones that have some significant difference or new meaning or a reason to watch it as opposed to just like reading the book or playing the game. They offer something new by saying something new about the original work or saying something new with the original work or so on and so forth. However, nothing about Chainsaw Man differs from the manga on any real level. It simply does it again with a disregard for why it worked in the first place. You cannot just easily divorce Chainsaw Man from the medium it originated in. It's not that Chainsaw Man is just lying atop the page and you can just take it off. It is deeply entangled with the page itself. The form of the manga dictated Chainsaw Man. To simply try and pretend that we are making it in live action without any considerations for why the original art style works, or why a differing art style, an anime art style, a new art style could work, is going to pose significant challenges to making the anime work. Simply, anime isn't live action. They are two very different mediums with two different conventions. And you are significantly hindering yourself by trying to make your medium into a different medium. And intuitively, I think we understand this. Often games that are trying to be movies are derided because they are not really games, they are playable movies. And like, sure man, the movie aspect of those games can be good. I'm not gonna knock something like The Last of Us for having a good story or good presentation, but the game part, because it is still packaged as a game, is incredibly unfulfilling because it's not really trying to be a game despite being a game. Subsequently, when you adapt a game to the screen and it's literally just a real depiction of the same thing, there is no real point in watching it because you've already experienced it before the same way. There's this desire to say that because it is in live action, it is somehow more worthy of praise and is cinematic, and neither of these are really true. What makes something cinema is a masterful implementation of every aspect of the given medium, the end art being greater than the sum of its parts, and the product feeling like this could only be done in film. An anime is no less worthy of artistic praise and flattery than live action film. Chainsaw Man is an adaptation of a cinematic manga because the original manga implemented so many aspects and ideas about manga to make it better, to make it great, to make it feel wholly unique. People don't appreciate what is being lost in the adaptation because when you watch the show, it's fine. Like, I'm not gonna lie, when I watched the show for this video, I was like, this is totally chill. Like, it's cool, I guess. I like it. I don't really have to think too hard. But I would encourage anyone to look at the manga and see how the original panels they copied sell the emotions better and make for a more impactful work. So adaptation theory is hard and very nebulous. It's not well understood by most people, which is why I think that there is a strong subsect of the population who are on board with the lifelike aspects, and I don't necessarily blame them. The elements in a vacuum are great, but when you try and manipulate Chainsaw Man to fit this live action costume, it's far less appealing because you can directly look at the thing it's mimicking and see that it is just better. Yes, comparison is the thief of joy, but again, there are so many animes out there, and there are so many shonen adaptations out there. None of them exist without conversation with their other ones. So I don't think it's too far-fetched to say that Chainsaw Man is rather unremarkable, because when you look at JJK Shibuya arc, you see this insane animation with these insanely crafted shots and sequences and MAPPA employees being worked to the bone, and then you look at Dawn and you see this impressive color and all this motion and these inventive uses of dialogue and dub to be remarkably different.
And don't come back, you fugly skank! Blow it out your ass, pig!
And even in something like Bleach, Kubo is coming back because he didn't get to actually write a full comprehensive ending when he was finishing it initially. Chainsaw Man doesn't have anything like that on the table. Okay, so I'm gonna stop being a hater for a second, and I want to talk about things I like about the new direction. The voice direction works, the solemn live-action approach better sells what's happening.
Earlier you said you'd never pet Pochita again. I sympathize with you now. 'Tis a dreadful feeling.
I think that besides the big action climax parts, it never really disappointed me. I think it has a lot of nuance to it. It doesn't make up for all the other things we're cutting from the art style, but it does certainly help to alleviate a lot of it. The dub cast is also pretty good.
I say no! I'll murderize him. Straight kill the shit out of that asshole!
I wish they got more fun and more fluid in their translation, but I understand that's probably not anybody's fault. And finally, the music is great. The Silent Hill 2 style OST and then the breakcore is a very fun mix. So I want to get back to the art, and the thing I want to talk about the most is Himino's apartment section in episodes 7 and 8. Legitimately, the end of episode 7 and the beginning of episode 8 are perfect. This part in Himino's apartment is so expanded from the manga. It uses color, the character designs are both rough and expressive, the shot variety is new, and it says something about Himino that was not present in the manga. The way it is structured is that episode 7 is Denji's perspective, which is taken mostly from the manga, but episode 8 is Himino's, which is new. The use of first person in episode 7 from Denji's perspective, and then the use of first person in episode 8 from Himino's perspective is a great juxtaposition, it's a great mirroring, and we get to see both of their expressions. Episode 8 having Himino's perspective introduces new things that the manga didn't have. It shows us more about Himino, it helps humanize her, and helps tell us a little bit about her. When we're not doing first person, we do these distant shots that show the entire apartment and have Himino small, but she pops off the screen because her art style is more anime-y. We get to see a lot about her apartment and how it's kept, and the live action, hyper-realistic style of the apartment does sell its existence. The use of blue and the use of this light pink helps sell the tranquility, but the loneliness and the sadness that's also intrinsically there, but also like this thing they got going on or whatever you want to call it. So this 10 or 15 minutes does justify the new approach. And this is where I see the merits of the new art direction because it does have them, and here it's on full display. But what makes this section so good is that we're not just doing live action stuff. Half of what I've praised is anime things, and why I want to talk about this as being exemplary of the new approach is that it is the mixing of the live action with the anime stuff. And that's what the anime should be, figuring out what works best about live action and finding ways to implement it with anime stuff. The things I'm talking about with the camera perspectives is not present in the rest of the show because every other camera perspective has to be like a real traditional Hollywood camera perspective. The color's not there, the animated facial expressions aren't there. It's just the unwavering approach that really hinders the anime. That means scenes which benefit from live action style elements don't because we overdo it because it's just live action, and so we lose other forms of expression. So despite what I've said and maybe how I've come across, I do not hate the idea of implementing some live action elements into the anime. It would be nonsensical. Fujimoto has made use of film conventions in the manga, but I am opposed to this overarching directive of to make it film. And like we know it doesn't suit Fujimoto's work because Look Back doesn't do this at all. Look Back finds great use of realism in some instances, but if you look at the art style as a whole, it is both Fujimoto's art style, but livened up with color and motion. The way the characters live in this film is what we should want from Chainsaw Man. So I think people might think it's apples and oranges to compare Look Back to Chainsaw Man, and in some respects it kind of is. I'm not saying Chainsaw Man needs to look like Look Back, but I think it's also important to demonstrate that a story with very real human emotions, human ideas, human characters can be done in a way that isn't strictly live action, especially when Look Back is heavily influenced by real events that happened to the real author of the story. To say that Chainsaw Man can't take a more inventive or imaginative approach seems silly to me, and it seems like it undersells what Chainsaw Man is about. When this movie was screened in theaters last year, they had an interview with director Oshiyama that aired after the film, and in this interview, Oshiyama discusses how he has to bring new ideas to the table and reinvent what worked about the manga to better suit it to the screen. And this is also seen with Dananon's directors. They talk about this in their interviews before their films, and I wish we had the same kind of vision for Chainsaw Man. Even in Chainsaw Man, we see this with Kickback. It is an insane over-the-top spectacle that has live-action elements, working in harmony with the absurdist nature of the work, which is why I and others who don't like the anime are so frustrated. Kickback, as well as the other outros, encapsulate all of the absurdity of Chainsaw Man while also using elements of traditional cinema in their presentations. The use of live action does not work in the anime because it is by and large the only thing we actually have at work. When we break from the strict live action and involve some more animation specific elements, the show rapidly improves. Live action isn't bad, but when you disregard everything about the manga to pursue it, why are you even making an anime? If this was a live action movie, it would be more interesting, because it is such a departure from the norm that it could be remarkable and harder to actually criticize. Instead, we have something that is anime because that's the medium you adapt manga into, instead of that's the medium the story wants to be told in. As a whole, the Chainsaw Man anime is fine, because it's Chainsaw Man, and it's competently made. So much of the runtime is quieter moments. The complaints I had are largely minimized or not that present. But when you actually try and interrogate the work and to parse the meaning, you find something hollower than the original and afraid to differ too heavily from the original to justify its position. If you like the Chainsaw Man anime, that's fine. But do you actually like the anime, or do you like the manga and appreciate a novel approach? I do, however, share concerns that Chainsaw Man could just be another MAPPA generic title. But I think after the success of JJK and Look Back, as well as hopefully the Rize arc, it can actually use live action when it would be beneficial and do new and creative things. From the trailers, it does look like they found a better direction with more heart and hopefully a way to elevate the work beyond just being Chainsaw Man on the screen. So the director of the original anime is gone. Ryu Nakayama is not directing the Rize arc movie. I don't know how much involvement Fujimoto has on the new movie, but regardless of all of that, I don't think it's fair to blame the director. I don't know what was going on in the background. There's a lot of producers listed for the show. Fujimoto was involved. Who knows who had the ideas here? It could very easily be that he wanted to do something slightly different, or maybe this was his genuine, earnest attempt at making Chainsaw Man, and it just didn't work out. Regardless if I liked them or not, it's still incredibly unfair for his name to be removed from the credits of the compilation movies. Nakayama only does openings now, which is a respectable art form, but I hope he's doing it because that's what he wants to do and not him being relegated to that position. The criticism against him specifically was harsh, and any personal attacks missed the point that the anime was done by a very large corporate entity with all their own issues and problems. So, to tell you the thesis statement, the art is fine, but the art for the purposes of making a compelling anime adaptation of Chainsaw Man is incredibly weak and short-sighted. The art is of high fidelity, but it's not actually unique in a way that accentuates Chainsaw Man or makes the work have a discernible long-term impact. It's memorable because it's different, it's not memorable because of anything it says. Everything the anime does is better in the manga, so if you've only seen the anime, I highly recommend you read the manga. And while I've been super critical, if you've engaged with the art and have a text-supported view of why the style works, then respectfully, tell me. Because that's the only way we can actually have the discussion, is that everyone comes into it with actually arguing a reasoned point respectfully. At the end of the day, this argument is because I want people to think about what they do or do not like, and why they do or do not like it. And I know why I like Chainsaw Man and why I don't like the anime. And I can only hope that the Rize arc is so good that we just don't have to have this discussion anymore because we have a better thing to go on and talk about. So when JJK Season 1 came out, I was not that big of a fan of it, and then the Zero movie came out, I saw it in theaters, and I was not a fan of that. And so I was convinced that the show wasn't good. But then Shibuya Incident came out, and I was blown away because the animation was so good that the underlying themes and emotions and ideas of JJK became more realized for me. And so then I went and I read the manga, and I realized I actually really liked the manga. Sure, it picks up strides later on, but it's a pretty good manga from the start. And so I hope we can get a similar thing with Rize arc, with Chainsaw Man, that people can see the movie and realize that, hey, Chainsaw Man might be something I'm interested in. And they read the manga, and then we have more fans. At the end of the day, that's all we want. We want, A, to see the thing we've already seen before on screen. We want it new but different. We want to play into our nostalgia. But we also just want more people to like the thing we like.
If only we could fly!
It helps reinforce our belief that the things we like are valid. And I hope that all of us can just be like, I love Chainsaw Man. And the discussion about the art style isn't because I hate Chainsaw Man or you hate Chainsaw Man. It's because we like Chainsaw Man and we just want it to be good. I realized 80% of the way through making this that I actually just inadvertently copied Tom's style for how he makes his videos. So I'm sorry, Tom. Please forgive me. I was watching Astiff movie in 3rd grade, so I hope we can smooth this over.